So tomorrow is the fifth anniversary of the death of my mom. She died on January 2nd, 2018. So for a lot of people, the death of their mom is very monumental, depending on the type of relationship you had. But to be honest with you, I feel like regardless to the type of relationship that you had with your mom, um, their death is very monumental. Um, it's one of those things that until you experience it, you really can't wrap your mind around it. You really don't understand all of the different emotions that evokes until it happens. When I was younger, I used to try to like visualize the feeling of that, just based on the type of lifestyle that my mom was living. I kind of I tried to brace myself for hearing anything, whatever may have came during that time. I wanted to kind of be prepared for it, so I kind of always visualize, you know how I would respond or how it would make me feel in the event that I heard bad news. So, I felt like I would be prepared when that time came. And in a sense, I believe because I used to do that, I think that it kind of served as a landing board, if you will, so that even though I felt it, I didn't feel the it wasn't as if I had never considered it or never thought about it before, right? Nevertheless, even though I called myself years prior preparing myself for that, you can never truly be fully prepared for that. So it still came and felt, I wasn't prepared for that feeling. I wasn't, I could never have imagined what I would have felt when I felt it. So it was just interesting enough that the day that it happened, I truly believe like what the Bible say, like that your days are already numbered, right? In the sense of however long you're gonna be here, it's already been set forth. It's already designed. Um, so that day it kind of pretty much confirmed that for me in the sense of it was nothing that we could have done to change the course of what was happening in a way that we normally usually could do something about it, right? The weather was so bad that day, like it was really cold, it was windy, it was raining. Um, we couldn't get her to Shan's. And usually anytime she was really bad out, we would always be able to they would automatically like helicopter her to Shan's. Even sometimes, you know, in the ambulance they would take her or whatever, but her situation would have required the helicopter. So they couldn't, right? Because they said that the weather just wasn't conducive to helicopter her there, right? So her condition already was bigger and broader than what Orlando Health could do at that time. Because she had recently had a heart transplant. So, she already was kind of on a different level of medical necessity. So it's like our hands. Hey there, Jackie. All right, how you doing? Um, so yeah, she already was in a situation where if God didn't do it, it wasn't gonna be done, right? Because the hospital that had always helped her couldn't get her there. Um, and when the doctor, he pretty much had said, "Hey, we've done everything that we could do." So it truly was her time, and it was nothing that we could do about that. and I understood that in that moment. Um, so nevertheless, you fast forward to, it happened. Now you have to deal with the aftermath. You have to deal with your feelings. You have to deal with missing her. You have to deal with everything that comes along with a death. Marriages and funerals, they always bring about all type of emotions, right? So you're gonna have some highs and you're gonna have some lows anytime those things are going on within a family. Um, but to skip past all those things that went on, just 5 years forward, and thinking about everything that has happened in between that time, and you're still dealing with it. It's like I believe that death is not one of those things that you get over. I think you just learn to live with it. You learn how to deal with your feelings. You learn how to embrace what happened. Um, and it's just funny. Like I find myself, I feel like the older I get, I look more like my mom. And like even today, when when I wear blonde, like she was wearing blonde for a good season in her life, and I used to be like, "Oh, why you wearing that? Like I don't like that. Ugh." Go figure. Now who wear it? Like it's just strange how things happen. And I just think that as I got older, especially in these last 5 years after she passed, it just was a lot of things that you started to understand that you didn't necessarily understand. Whether it was when you were a kid or whether it was you know you just didn't understand a lot of moves that was made, or a lot of how your mom moved, or how your parents may have moved, the things they did. You didn't really understand a lot of things all the time. But like the old folks used to say, just keep on living. You start understanding some things, and you actually start to appreciate some things. Because my mom was big on not lying, right? As a kid, like that's something she didn't play that. So that that's still, that's something that's really instilled in me as far as not being a liar. You feel me? I won't answer your question before I lie to you about the answer, right? Um, she just was really heavy, heavy on not being a liar. You know what I'm saying? And it's like things I see my nieces and nephews doing and stuff, like I'm like, dang, I wish my mom would sit to snatch them up, right, and redirect those behaviors. Um, So it's like I can really appreciate some of the things that she was doing, to make sure that I had a certain that to make sure that I had certain behavior attributes, and that to make sure that I didn't have certain behavior attributes. So I couldn't appreciate it then as a child, or maybe as an adolescent, but as an adult, I definitely can look back on some things and appreciate, and even things that in her relationships that she may have done that I didn't really understand, or I didn't really co-sign. Now that I'm older, I can appreciate when sometimes when people say, hey, I stayed in a relationship for the kids, or maybe I stayed a little longer for the kids because I wanted them to have things that I didn't have. So now I can appreciate, I appreciate that, even though I'm a woman, so I understand, like, all of that don't just be about the kids. Some of that be about your feelings. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate the fact that you know she had a desire to raise me up in a two-parent home, um, even if it meant that, hey, she had to deal with some things that she didn't necessarily want to deal with, or she accepted some things that maybe was a little rough for her to accept at the time. Just the fact that her heart's desire was that her kids were brought up in a two-parent home. I can appreciate that. So nevertheless, like I said, 5 years later, you still, you dealing with it as the days go on. You're dealing with, navigating life without the presence of your mom, when the majority of your life you had your mom in some way, even if it was just that she was alive, whether y'all was in a good relation or not, they were they were there, right? So then now you have to navigate through life without them being there, and then that's a whole different animal, right? Because as I'm approaching like menopause and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, well, what age did she start menopause? I mean, I remember when she used to say she was having hot flashes and stuff like that, but you know, I don't remember what age that was, and just as a woman, they say that you enter menopause around the same exact time that your mom entered menopause. Okay, well, she's not here for me to ask her that, so I don't really have, I don't have anything to go by to guess like what my number is. Um, So it's just things, different things like that come into play that, just conversations that as you get older you would like to probably sit down and have. And you know, they're just not there for you to have them. So I just would like to encourage anyone who is you know, dealing with loss or, maybe dealing with loss in terms of your mom. I would just like to say, it is definitely a part of life. It should be that way that you bury your mom. It shouldn't be the other way around that your mom has to bury you. So even in that, it's still a blessing because it happened in the way that it's supposed to happen. Like you buried her, she didn't have to bury you. Um, I don't think my mom could have dealt with emotionally that she could have dealt with having to bury any of her kids. I think that would have been something that was just a little too much for her. Um, So I thank God that didn't occur. Um, it's always going to be times that you miss them. It's always going to be things, um, conversations that you want to have with them. It's always going to be things you wish you could just tell them. I wish you could see how similar my niece is to her. Like my niece is so similar to her that it's crazy that um, you would think that my niece had spent a huge amount of time with my mom because she acts so much like her. So it's just funny to see that. And I wish that was something that my mom could have, been privy to watch her grow up and to watch how she enjoys food and stuff like that, the same way my mom did. But anyways, yeah, I just encourage anyone that maybe the holidays just passed. A lot of times you tend to start, really missing your loved ones around that time. But I just encourage you to, embrace the changes that life presents. Um, Find the good in it. Um, and just try to, do your best to navigate through those times and do your best to mentally start to prepare yourself for those things that will surely come because life is going to happen. Um, and the best that you can do is just make sure that certain things are lined up so that when it happens, the transition can be, easier, whether financially easier or, emotionally easier, mentally easier. Um, do the best that you can for them or towards them while they're here so that you can have less regrets or less guilt. I can say that my guilt and regrets, like that's I don't really have too much of that when it comes to me and my mom. I feel like I worked all of that stuff out, worked, all of our disagreements and past issues. We worked through that, so that was another blessing in itself that we were able to work some things out before her demise. Because if you don't, then I can imagine that you would live a life where you're feeling, it's heavy on you, because you can't go back and fix some of that stuff. You can't go back and fix any of it when once they've gone. You could just, go try to get some counseling for it, but you can't fix any of it between y'all. So for me and myself, I don't know about my siblings, but myself, I could say, I feel like, we were squared away, so that brings you a certain level of peace. Um, but yeah, life is going to happen. Certain things are going to happen. Certain things supposed to happen in a certain way. So I would just say, Embrace the time that you have with your family, and especially your parents. Embrace that time. Do well by them, so that when the when certain things occur naturally, you'll be able to better navigate those times. That's it. Enjoy your day.